Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Rettger. I'm the author of Oathbreaker, and I'm joined today by PL Stuart, author of A Drowned Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us today, Paul. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, AJ. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, for those of you that don't know your work, can you kind of give a quick elevator pitch what A Drowned Kingdom is about?
When one kingdom drowns, a new one rises in its place. That is the saga of Prince Arthur and the Flawed Prince, and uh, and his rise to power in a new world after his kingdom, which is based on my version of the tale of Atlantis after his kingdom drowns.
Nice. So, yours isn't a grimdark book, correct? It's more just like epic fantasy.
Well, it's funny. Some people qualify as grim dark because of some of the
Oh,
themes I explore, and some of them are pretty serious. Like there's racism, misogyny, a lot of religious intolerance, homophobia. It's there is a kind of a grim dark element to it, and it's about a flawed guy who's bigoted, and part of the book is about whether or not he's going to change and evolve. But you can read it essentially as your typical epic high fantasy book with the battles and mages and kings and queens. So depends how you want to read it. I think my last podcast I described it as a hard boiled egg, and you can kind of peel off the shell and digest it as that, or you can get right to the yellow part. So
yeah. I know grimdark's such like a blanket term nowadays. It's kind of losing its meaning. Everyone, as soon as you deal with a little bit more serious stuff, it's grimdark.
yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of you kind of gotta be careful how you label with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not big on labels when it comes to fantasy. I think for a lot of us, especially the authors, we tend to blur genres. Like you mix in some authors mix in a little bit of romance with a thriller type, and then you have that epic stuff. And it's just, I think, especially as an indie author, because you have that latitude and that freedom to kind of, blur genres a little bit. A lot of us do. Which makes things spices things up. I think makes it kind of interesting. Things that you wouldn't necessarily get away with if you're traditionally published. So kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, for those of you who are watching, a little bit of a fun trivia fact between Paul and I: we're both through the same vanity press, FriesenPress, and we were both bestsellers with our debut books.
Yeah,
And
that's fantastic. We actually have the same publishing manager, and I have Oathbreaker here. I'm excited to get to it. I haven't read it yet. It's high on my TBR. Got a couple more books to get through, but looking forward to reading your work. And yeah,
yes,
honored to be a bestseller like you. Yeah, I went straight to number one for a couple weeks, and I fell right off after that.
yeah, that's how
Disappeared,
mine was too. I was up there for like a week, and then I just tanked.
yeah, but it's all good. Once a bestseller, always a bestseller. Flags fly forever. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all
And
good.
then A Drowned Kingdom's on my TBR. My TBR has just exploded since I've entered in the indie author world because there's all these awesome people that I'm starting to talk to like on Twitter and Reddit, and I'm just like uh, reading their books and buying their books, and it's just like holy crap! I've
Yeah.
never read this much books in my life than I have like in the last year.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'll try and sneak in as many books as I can if you don't mind here on the podcast and flash them now
Oh
and
yeah,
again.
for
One of
sure.
them is another fellow FriesenPress buddy, Lucian Telford, The Sequence, great sci-fi book that is I'm honored to actually put some review fodder in my comments on his book. He's phenomenal. He's out of based out of Vancouver.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, what was your inspiration to, I guess, start writing and pursue the indie author path?
Well, I'm not sure how you feel, AJ, but one of the biggest things was I'm old and I started coming to this indie game late, so I figured, going through the whole querying process can take years to secure an agent, and then that agent has to shop your book to a trad publisher, and then trad publishers can have pretty extensive timelines. There's a pecking order, and if I come in and I'm publishing, say, Orbit, and someone like John Gwynn's book is due at first, and my book's getting pushed back. So, I just felt that, with the expedited timelines of indie authorship and the freedom, the creative freedom, I felt that was the way to go. So,
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of how I was too. Not so much in terms of the timelines. I didn't even actually think of that. But it was just the freedom that I was self-publishing. I could write a story that I wanted to do,
Yeah.
because Oathbreaker does like a very cardinal sin, especially as a debut book, is that it's a slow start. Like my prologue is like 25 pages, which prologue should never be that long. Apparently, I've been told, but it was just something that I did, and then and I was told by a few agents, because I did try to shop it around when I was young and naive and thought this was the best thing since sliced bread and everyone's gonna love it. And a couple of agents did tell me this is going to be a tough sell for a slow burn like this. And I was like, okay, well.
Oh, it's funny though, but then like you're telling me that, I get even more jazzed because I love slow burn books and I feel mine's a slow burn.
Yeah.
My prologue's a bit shorter, but at the same time, the first third of my book is very much world building and setting a scene, and then the action tends to pick up a bit from then. But I love slow and burn books. And I think especially for if you're someone who likes to read character driven novels, most readers like that, they appreciate a slow burn book. If you like the more plot focused stuff, you want that action constant and bang right off the bat. And those readers tend to love the plot driven books. But I think mine's a bit of both. But I think I value characters over plot. That's the type
Yeah.
of books I prefer.
Yeah, I think that's how I am too. Characters over plot. I mean, you can have the best plot in the world, but if your characters are so flat and one dimensional, your reader's not going to get hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure, absolutely.
So what made you, I guess, how the idea of a Drowned Kingdom in that series come to life? How did that pop into your head?
Oh wow, that's been percolating for years. Since beyond high school, and I was always fascinated with the legend of Atlantis. I always knew I wanted to write something about that. So the genesis of the idea started with me wanting to write something about Atlantis. I'm a big fan of medieval type fantasy. My background is I have a degree in English and a specialization in medieval literature and a minor in history from York University. And I really raised on the classics, your Tolkien's and your C.S. Lewis's and your T.H. White's, and now the more modern authors, the Martins and the N.K. Jemisons, and I that's it, it's always been in my head to write a high epic fantasy. But I wasn't in the headspace, didn't have the time. And then later in life, you find yourself in a different scenario where, you no longer have young kids carting all over the place to sporting events, and you're at a certain point of your career, and you can finally, move forward. And of course, having a great supportive wife that was willing to part with me and be my business partner, that really was a game changer. So it was time to do it.
Yeah, time to pull the trigger. Yeah, and I'm not sure if you know or our viewers know, but my story was created out of petty spite. I hated how they cast Henry Cavill as Geralt and The Witcher.
In The Witcher.
Yeah, and Henry Cavill, thankfully, has since made me eat those words. He has done an amazing job.
Yeah,
and I now love him. I'm like, oh my god, that was a perfect casting choice. But at the time they announced it, which is my favorite book series, I was like, oh come on, he's too pretty. Geralt's supposed to be like this ugly, rough, tough, scarred looking guy. And so yeah, I just basically was like, this is bullshit. I'm writing my own book. And then it kind of just caught traction from there. That's how Oathbreaker started.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Well, sounds right up my alley. Like I said, knights, and I love the cover. That's
the cover was really cool.
that's a sweet cover, man. So I can't wait to get into that one. So
yes, for sure. And if any of our viewers have questions, just send them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. Just nothing hurts with a little bit of interaction with the audience. I always like to mention that in case some people are shy and don't know, oh, should I ask something or not?
absolutely.
But so who were, I guess, your main influences as authors go? I guess we kind of talked about that a little bit already.
Yeah. So again, a lot of the classicals, the Tolkien's, the Lewis's, the T.H. White's, One Future King, the more modern authors, N.K. Jemisin, definitely George R. R. Martin, big big one in my books, A Song of Ice and Fire, because he was the guy that really he did epic high fantasy, and he kind of had that almost dark, real dark flavor to it, and made it, and it still maintained that epic world building and that immersive world, and that's what I really really like. But I find that as I write now, a lot of my influences become the authors that I in the writing community, the wonderful authors that I surround myself with, and I see things that they write, and you see how they present their worlds, and just they really have an impact on me. I think that's what's happening now as my writing journey continues. So
Zach Argyle, he's coming up later in October. I don't know what day exactly, but he's half napping, half listening to us.
Peace out, Zach. What's going on, buddy? He's
So,
Captain
sure.
America. That's Cap right there, man. The guy is like, he's got everything. He's got the looks, clean cut. He's a great guy. He's one of those guys you could easily hate because he's got it all. He's like, he's so nice. He's good looking. He's smart. He's a great writer. He's so helpful, and everybody loves him. So, but yeah, Zach is awesome. I loved his book, Voice of War. It was absolutely phenomenal. I feel like he was a finalist in SBFBO, last year's SBFBO, and he easily could have won his. I mean, against tough competition, of course, but yeah, fantastic author, and just a great guy. Always looking to help people out, and so actually, I have he was kind enough to do an interview for my blog, and I'm going to that's going to be posted up probably next week, so on my website.
And he's glad he showed up for the praises. Kind of give him a little bit of a shout out there. Yeah, I read Voice of War, and it was just absolutely, it was an awesome book, and it kind of blew me away. I didn't know what to expect, and I was just like, but it was an SPFBO like semifinalist or finalist.
Finalist,
It was a finalist, And I went through that list, and I looked through the covers, read all the blurbs. I was like, Voice of War, that sounds pretty cool. So I decided to go forward with it. But speaking of SPFBO, we have another. I believe she's a finalist as well, Holly Tinsley.
Oh, Holly, peace out, Holly.
And she's waiting for the announcement that Henry Cavill will be playing Mario from Rettger.
Yeah, gotta give a shout out to We Men of Ash and Shadow, Holly Tinsley, one of my favorite authors, and just a phenomenal person. Honored to consider a friend, and her book is also a finalist in the current SPFBO 7, and only fantastic things ahead for Holly. She is going to be recognized, I think, as one of the top grimdark authors, if she isn't already. So.
Yeah, I was again. We Men of Ash and Shadows. I was in a Facebook group, a grimdark Facebook group with like Sean Crow, Michael Fletcher, all those guys, and they recommended We Men of Ash and Shadows. So I'm like, all right. So thought nothing of it. It wasn't really. I'm more medieval fantasy reading, and then when I read it, I instantly was like, holy crap, this is a whole new genre for me. And I was just like, it's grimdark, but it's not like stereotypical medieval fantasy. So it just really caught my eye, and so far it's one of my top reads of 2021.
Oh, one of mine too. And what she does with the whole gas lamp grimdark thing is very unique. And she she's so humble, and I'm not sure if she knows quite how talented she is, if she realizes it. But Holly Tinsley is on a rocket ship headed for the stars. So
yeah, but enough praises about our viewers. Let's get back to the main focus, you and the Drowned Kingdom. So when oh man, just lost my train of thought. It happens. But when you're writing, like, take us through your writing process. How do you go? Do you just sit down and plug it away? Do you have like a daily goal? Do you listen to music while you write? Like, take us through your writing process.
Well, music, I'm big into soundtracks, so I throw on soundtracks based on the scene I'm writing. So if it's, say, the battle scene, you might throw on the Gladiator soundtrack or something like that. And if it's a more political intrigue, I might throw on some Game of Thrones or Last Kingdom or something. And I'm big into soundtracks, but my writing is pretty chaotic in terms of I don't have a set writing quota. I'm not one of those people that sit down and plug away at I must write this many words a day. I work shift work. I found my energy ebbs and flows. I'm all over the place. Some days I just don't feel like it. I don't have the energy. And when I don't write. And then some days I'll write in this maniacal fashion, which is, like right now I'm doing edits for my second book, The Last Day of Atlanteans, the sequel to A Drowned Kingdom, book 2 of the 7-book saga. And I'm just plugging away, man. I'm in that mood. I'm in that zone. And it's just, and usually I slog through edits. Editing is my least favorite part of writing, but I'm pumped, man. I'm going. So, I don't have, I don't write a specific time during the day. I think the shift work is part of that. It's very chaotic in terms of messing with your circadian rhythms and kind of throws you off a bit. But when I'm on a tear, I'm on a tear, and I just write. I might write like a fiend when I'm motivated. So
yeah, for sure. And Holly asks, how many books do you have in your immediate vicinity right now?
Oh, in my immediate vicinity, well, hers is one. I showed hers. Mine, you already saw. I showed yours. Voice of War, Zach Argall. Again, one of my favorites. He's. I got him with me. I have Neglected Merge by Eve Kogoshi, fantastic writer from Latvia, good friend of mine. She writes romantic dystopian fantasy. Another FriesenPress author, Kay Pimpinel, Nexus Point, great sci-fi. Her book is currently in the sci-fi. I can't even pronounce what the acronym. Don't even know what the acronym. I think it's SPFC, self-published science
Sci-fi.
fiction blog up, and she's a quarter finalist right now.
Nice.
So look out for her as a rising star. Matt Sheehan, another FriesenPress author, Lord of the Wills, great fantasy sci-fi, a good buddy of mine, Matt Sheehan. Can't forget R.P. Lauer, Scars of Gaia, another sci-fi, really good book. That should be getting a lot of love. Good friend of mine, RP, great guy. I got a couple more. Can't forget Children from Bjorn Larson.
Yes, I've heard really great things about that book.
He is, good friend of mine and just an incredible, multi-talented author that can write anything: satire, grimdark, hisfic. Now, here is a book that people need to, a book that you may not have heard of. It's by Elizabeth Eckstein, another friend of mine, Crucible, The Crimson Lion. She writes like the Harry Potter type stuff, and it is phenomenal. This is one of my favorite books. If you like that kind of stuff, it's a short read. Last but not least, I got two more. Last but not least, this is Tim Hardy, Hall of Bones. It's Norse-inspired fantasy, and this is fantastic stuff. Especially if you like the you like the John Gwynne Shadow of the Gods type stuff. His is amazing. And finally, and last but not least, two-time SBFBO semi-finalist Jacob Sannox, another friend of mine, Dark Oak. I haven't gotten to this one yet, but it's burning a hole in my TBR, and I can't wait to start that. Another fantastic epic book.
Yeah, so Holly is actually the one who turned me on to not Voice of War. That's Dark Oak.
Yeah,
Jacob Sannox, and I was like, oh. And then I read it. I was like, oh man, that's good. So you're in for a treat with that book.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Are you more of a book reader, or do you dabble in digital, or do you dabble with like audiobooks at all? Or do
it's funny. My wife loves audiobooks. She's got an hour-long drive to work and back. Actually, so do I. But I've never listened to an audiobook in my life. You can believe it. A Drowned King was coming in audiobook in about a couple months' time, which is very exciting. And I know it's important to have books on as many platforms as possible, and especially for readers that can't or don't like physical books. So my wife's a big audiobook fan. I'm not. However, that doesn't mean I don't see the importance of it. And but I am very much a physical book person. So I'll be reading it now on my Kindle because I don't want to disturb my wife with the light on. But my jam is when I can get that physical book in my hand and just, I'm just flipping through the pages, and that's my thing. Fireplace on, maybe a shot of rum there, and I got my book in hand, and that's heaven. So
another question from Holly.
What tips for new authors breaking the writing?
That was one of my questions. So Holly kind of read my mind, telepathic, just picked it up off my sheet. And
she's like that.
Yeah.
She's a savant. I, I would say that I get out to social media early and often, well ahead of the launch of your book. Establish connections, meet people. The writing community, as you know, is an amazing place. Get to know it, and it's composed of people from all walks of life and backgrounds and strengths. Literary agents, librarians, authors, podcasters, readers, um, bloggers. So, and the thing is that, especially if you're a self-published author, you're typically having your subcontractor farming out bits and pieces of what you're doing, and everybody has their little niche expertise. Someone may be an expert with cover design. Someone may be a great editor. Someone may be a great beta. Someone may know a lot about how to navigate Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub. So, like, I think that's one of the big strengths about getting out there early and making those connections, so you can support people can support you, and they can really help you get established. But you have to do it early, because if you start after your book is released, you're kind of behind the eight ball.
Mhm.
Hopefully, you can build up enough awareness about your book prior to your book being released, that you're gonna have some hype and you're gonna have some buzz around your book, right? And things like this, doing podcasts, getting awareness out about who you are, what you represent, and what your book is about. I think those are all important aspects of being, especially an indie writer. You're your own marketing machine, man. There's no big trad company out there plugging your work silently in the middle of the night while you're sleeping. So, I think getting yourself out there and doing that early in your writing career prior to your release, while you're still drafting and editing, is a key.
Yeah, for sure. That's was kind of segues into my next question. What were some of the challenges of the self-publishing process that you experienced that you just didn't necessarily anticipate?
Well, I'm sure you're feeling this one, AJ, in that, when you realize that you're everything,
Hmm.
you are the publishing manager, you're the book promotion person. If you're completely self-published, you're everything. You might be the cover design artist. There's so many aspects that you can't even anticipate or plan for, actually, till you actually do it.
Hmm.
And I think the promotion part, though, is a really tough part that I didn't realize to what extent you had to self promote to actually get yourself heard above the noise of. There's so many phenomenal. I mean, look at all those amazing books I have, including yours, on my desk right now. Like, I mean, that's just a little tiny microcosm of all the amazing books out there. How do you get yourself heard above the top indie writers, like the Holly Tinsleys and the Zach Argyles? Like, how do you stand out, right? And it's not a competition. We all boost each other up and we all help each other. But what I'm saying is, how do you distinguish yourself amongst so many fantastic authors and reach people that, because Zach Argyle's book is very different from mine, very different from Holly's, etc. So they have their own audience, I'll have mine. But how do you find your audience? How do you establish that following and get people to know about who you are? And the level of constantly plugging your book, it's my least favorite part of doing it, to be honest with you. I just love to write. I mean, I enjoy interacting with people, I love making connections, and I think I'm a people person. But at the same time, man, you just feel like, a heel, just constantly buy my book, like, like you're begging people. Like, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, promotion's always like, I'm quite an introverted person. Like if I'm out, and like COVID's kind of been a blessing for me. Like I don't have to see people. I'm like, yes. I don't have to interact with like people who I see like at the bars or restaurants or whatever. So it's kind of been a blessing that way. But it's also, being an author, I've kind of had to go out and promote myself and really take that step, and I guess show that confidence that, like, hey, my book's actually worth it. My book is good. So that's definitely a challenge that I can relate to as a self-publisher, because like you said, you wear so many different hats as a self-published author. You got to do so many things because, like you said, there's no big corporate entity doing the work for you.
Yeah, I'm so lucky I have my lovely wife Debbie, who's my business manager. She takes care of a lot of things for me. But even between the two of us, we both have full-time jobs, and you can only devote so many hours a day to doing that. And I mean, especially things like, I remember when I first started and realizing, so we send out all these blogging requests. Right now I'm on a blog tour, and I have there's some amazing bloggers that actually signed up to review my book, and I'm humbled by the positive feedback I've gotten so far. But initially, Deb sent out hundreds, literally hundreds of blog requests, and we got a handful of people. This is way back before the book came out, to be once reviewed. I'm grateful for them. They're amazing people, and that's just it helps so much, because as an indie author, again, that exposure from getting a professional reviewers to review your book. But the average indie author, if you're lucky, in a year you'll get 50 to 100 reviews on Goodreads. Meanwhile, a traditionally published author, their marketing machine has sent that book all over the world, and they're gonna have thousands and thousands of reviews, and you're like, yeah, it's the promotional stuff is tough sledding, man. But you have to keep going, and you have to do it somewhat relentlessly.
Yeah. One thing I learned from just by sitting back and watching, because Oathbreaker's my debut book, and this is kind of like my first kick of the cat, so to speak. I've learned so much from all these other indie authors and how they promote their books. And one thing I've learned is to reach out to other indie authors for comments and for reviews. And that's something that I've gotten some invaluable feedback from others, and even booktubers who I didn't even know were a thing prior to publishing. And then so they've given me some invaluable feedback and some great praise as well. So that's just like, I guess my advice, segueing back to Holly's question, is there any tips for writing community and getting their books out there, would be just to ask people. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah, I was fortunate again to have some phenomenal authors that were willing to, read my book, give me an honest review, and provide, and be able to use their positive feedback for my book. Mateus Kahns, he's another FriesenPress author, brilliant guy, and a colleague of mine. He writes Beast of the Night. His book is, he's one of the people that commented. Elizabeth Eckstein, who I already showed you her book, Quicksilver and Brimstone. She was one of them that I was also willing, to comment, and yeah, that's invaluable. And it again, I think we succeed in this thing together as indie authors. And like you said, I think having those voices in your head that can tell you, perhaps, okay, if you have an exposure to writing or something that needs improvement, and can tell you honestly based on their experience and what they know, and trusted opinions, because you're gonna get a lot of opinions of your work, man, and the important thing is finding the trusted ones, the ones that will really tell you how they feel honestly, whether that's positively or negatively, and they have your best interests at heart. So that's a real advantage.
Yeah. Speaking of reviews, I just pulled up the cover art of your book, Drawn Kingdom, and you had a little excerpt from Kirkus reviews, and it's compares you to George R.R. Martin, which is huge praise. How'd you feel when you got that news? Because I know I went through Kirkus, and because I wanted to get my book out there, I didn't wait for them so we could put their review on it. But they gave Oathbreaker quite a bit of praise as well.
Yeah, I read your Kirkus review. Yep, it was outstanding.
Yeah, how is that news when you're waiting? Because I know it's like when you're kind of chewing on your fingernails, waiting for the big guys to say how they think about your book, and then for them to come out as praise. Like, kind of walk us through that feeling.
I will be honest with you, I'm not normally like this, but I think I drove my poor wife crazy. I've never been so nervous in my life waiting for the Kirkus and the Clarion review. Clarion, they're a big indie, influential reviewer, and their review was even better than the Kirkus one for me. But I and then Kirkus actually put out their indie magazine. They put me under their 4 great examples of the genre. Nice. For their and that was a shock, surprise, but you know what, AJ, like it was fantastic, and I really bit my nails just like you for so long waiting for that. And you're sitting there, and and you analyze every single little word, and you take the criticisms, and because it's Kirkus, right, and they're an influencer. But again, you realize after you've been in the game for a bit longer, you can't get too high or too low about these review things. Some people aren't going to like your book, and they're going to say some flattering things about you, and that's about the book, and that's okay, because not every reader is going to like your book, and some will praise it glowingly, and that's fantastic. But I think now I'm a bit more realistic about the feedback. George R. R. Martin obviously is one of the iconic writers to me, and to be compared to him is Tim Hardy. Actually, one of the actually the most flattering things anyone's ever said about writing is Tim Hardy, author of Hall of Bones, fantastic guy. He compared the first part book. He said if J.R. Tolkien and George R. R. Martin wrote the Silmarillion, that would be kind of like Drowned Kingdom part of it. So that was like that's high praise.
Yeah, that's a huge compliment to be compared to those titans.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. So the last of the Atalanteans is the follow-up to A Drowned Kingdom. It's the next book in the series. Kind of, when you started writing The Drowned Kingdom, did you plan for it to be a 7-book series, or was it kind of like, okay, now this is really good. Once you finish it, you're like, okay, this is actually really good. I need to keep working on this. Or was it from like, this is a 7-book series from the start?
Yeah, this is a 7-book series from the start, AJ. So I kind of, when I actually wrote the shell and bones of all 7 books, that was this massive 1,000+ page tome, that this brick that no one was ever going to read at once, right? And and I've said this before in previous interviews, like as a novice author, and you talk to agents, and I never have, but after doing my research, it's like, trusted friends, no one's going to read a 1,000-page book from you, man. As a novice author, you're lucky if they're going to read 400 pages from you. So, I thought about it. I was like, well, if I split it up into 7 books, I've always heard one of the best ways to sell your book is to make a series, and to have a lot of books in succession. So I'm like, okay, well, that's an easy fix. So split it into books. I found I could get 7 quality books from between 400 and 500 pages out of it. And it's an ongoing series about authoring. So it was always planned to be 7. But I'm also have 2 separate prequel trilogies planned, written in the same universe, based on Authorin's ancestors that lived before he was born, 2 of them. And then once that's done, I plan to return for another 7-book series to pick up where the Authorin, the Drowned Kingdom saga, is left off. So I have 20 books planned in this universe. So, and hopefully I can pump out 1 book a year. That's my plan. So the last Atlantean should be out around the same time as Drowned Kingdom was. So spring of 2022. And then the 3rd book, 2023, 4th book, 2024, and so on. So that's my plan, ambitious as it sounds. So we'll see if I can make it come to fruition.
Yeah, I love that, you have all those books planned all in the same universe, because I'm the same way. The book I'm working on right now, which is my 2nd book, isn't the sequel to Oathbreaker, as much to some people's chagrin who want to know what happens at the end of Oathbreaker. It's kind of a prequel, totally different characters, totally different world, or not totally different world, totally different characters, totally different kingdom it's in, and just it happens a couple generations prior to the main character Mario's story in Oathbreaker. And I think that's so cool that when an author can just go in and explore the world and like all these different timelines and really flesh it out. I think that's really good, rather than just writing thousands or hundreds of different worlds.
Yeah, I mean, some of the really successful authors, they write standalones. Like I said, the Michael Fletchers, the Clayton Snyders. They have these amazing standalone novels where they can immerse you for 1 book, and then they're on to the next one, right? And I think because I write the more epic high fantasy, and again, we talked about influences, the Tolkiens, the Martins. They do this thing where they just keep on going, man, and they pull on these little threads that you might not otherwise have read about. You know what I mean? They Tolkien writes a Silmarillion and all those other books, The Hobbit, besides Lord of the Rings, all set in the same world. But so I something about that has always intrigued me. So yeah, that's how I write.
Yeah, it's the same way. I write that way too. So, moving forward with the books, you said you're going to stick with FriesenPress for 7-book series, and then the prequels you're going to try, I guess, more traditionally published. Do I have that right? Or you know what? That's so down far the pipeline, you're not even thinking about that yet.
No, I am thinking about it because, crazy as this may sound, again, me being the ambitious guy, I'm actually started to write the 2 prequel trilogies simultaneously while writing the Drowned Kingdom saga. So, and with those, I don't know. I might pitch them. I might try to publish them another way. Hybrid publishing has so many options. I don't. I might try to traditionally publish them. Like I said, I don't quite know where I'm going yet with them, but I think what I'm learning too, AJ, is that the biggest thing you need to do is write. You write as many books as you can, and then you publish them somehow. How they're published, yeah, because we've seen writers that have gone back and forth through various modes of publication. They've started out traditional, they switched to hybrid, they went to full subpub, they came back to trad, they published different series in different modes. And because the publishing world is evolving so rapidly, I think that, I don't know if in 15 years we'll have traditional publishing as we know it now. Maybe some blend hybrid of, unless of course you're an ex-president or a movie star. I think they'll still get big trad contracts, but I think for the rest of us, even really established writers and established writers with big pedigrees, I see self-publishing as becoming the thing. My theory, my if you want to call it conspiracy theory, has always been that since Amazon's the world's biggest book publisher and publishes 70% of the world's books, that one day they might just decide for what it would be the cost for you and I buying a car to buy what's left of the big five, kind of big three-ish, maybe more now, traditional publishing companies, and just own the whole thing. And then what happens, right? So they certainly have the money to do it. I mean, antitrust laws might get in the way in the U.S., but and because Amazon now that's the big publisher, right? So, and most of those books are becoming self-published books. So we'll see where it goes.
Exactly. So, do you hide references in your books at all to like your influences and your heroes, or do you just try to keep it based in the world?
Well, it's based in the world, but there'll be certain things you read in my book because, whether it be references to, different religions, existing religions, paganism, existing major religions. There's all kinds of things, little breadcrumbs that if you read closely, you'll see. And of course, basing off Atlantis, which is, as we all know, the myth. Well, we think it's a myth, first propagated by Plato, the famous philosopher. That in itself is something that, obviously I took that from real life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a fantastical tale. However, a real life person came up with the idea of Atlantis, and maybe based on something historical, maybe not. Excuse me, we were not sure, but so you'll see a lot of that throughout my books, little breadcrumbs of things like that. So
Okay. Yeah. I'm a big Easter egg hider in my writing. I love hiding little nods because, like, if you look at my book, I got references to authors, I got references to metal bands, I got references to classic literature works. Like, I have a Don Quixote a reference in my
oh,
book.
that's awesome.
I have, like, if you
Tilting at
look,
windmills.
yeah, if you have, oh, see, I got my book right here. See if I can hold it up. Oh, you probably won't be able to see it because it's super small. But the map of my book,
Uh-huh.
it says the Sea of Tragic Beasts on the side.
Oh.
That's actually a heavy metal band's
Yeah.
album
Yeah.
name. And I reached out to the band, and when I first published the book, and I said, "You guys were just a huge influence on me, just as my formative years, and I made this after you." And like they were actually responding to me like, "That's awesome, man! Like we
Oh,
love
yeah,
we
it is
we
awesome.
love to see that our fans are doing creative stuff like this." So it really was like a fanboy moment for me. But yeah, I love hiding all those little nuggets of gold in the text.
Yeah, that's fantastic stuff, man. I can't wait to see if I can pick. I have the book, so I can't wait to see if I can pick up on some of those. I have to compare notes after and see if I
Yeah.
was good enough to get a lot of them.
Yeah. I remember I got text when I first came out. I got text from my friends like, "Is this from Lord of the Rings? This one line?" And I was like, "Yep, that's like verbatim from the movie." So yeah, I just love hiding that little kind of stuff in there. It's and if you're as a reader, like when I'm reading other people's books and they have that and I catch it, it's just like I get such a great feeling. I'm like, me and the author are on the same wavelength right now.
Yeah, like he says, that fanboy moment, man, and
Yeah.
and we're all, we all are really immersed in this stuff. I think most of us that write, we're helpless geeks when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and I love reading fantasy. It's one of my favorite pastimes, and the whole thing about to become a better writer, you need to read avidly, and I take that seriously, and I love reading, and but I love immersing myself in I'm gonna love immerse myself in your world of Oathbreaker, and yeah, that's my jam, man. So that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So with your books, kind of, I guess, taking place, like I haven't read your books yet. Like I said, it's on my TBR base.
Yeah,
Did
I'm honored.
you? Yeah. Is it? I'm looking at the cover and I'm trying to formulate how I'm going to rate this. And based off the Legend of Atlantis, is it more of like almost like kind of like a water world type setting? Like, have you ever seen that movie with
Oh yeah,
Kevin
yeah. No,
Costner?
it's not like Aquaman or
Okay.
no, it's you'd probably find it more medieval in setting. It's and I don't the one thing that I have is there is mysticism and magic stuff in my books. What I like to do with my books is everything's very subtle and kind of like you're not sure if this is magic or if this is someone's imagination. You're not sure if this is real or is someone perceiving in a certain way, and that's what makes it seem like magic. So like you won't see dragons flying around necessarily, and you won't see elves and goblins, but that doesn't mean there's a magic or mysticism. So I think what I try to do is there's a healthy dose of I'd like to think reality or reality based themes in my book. So but there is an element of magic and mysticism. I like the soft magic stuff. I've read some great books by writers that their magic is just it's like a science, right?
Yeah.
It's this hardcore, almost a scientific type magic where everything has a structure, and you do X and this is the result, and you do Y. And I'm a lot more of the Tolkien school of magic where you don't know what Gandalf's powers are, you don't know how far reaching they are or how what the limitations are. He just does what he does, right? And you kind of go
Yeah.
along with it. So
What I guess going for how did you? No, how did you? Just yeah, I guess we kind of answered that. What were some of the best magic systems that you've read so far, just in terms of, or I guess most intriguing magic systems that you've read from other authors?
well, I have to say, Voice of War, Threadlight.
Yeah,
Magic.
Threadlight really good.
That was kick ass, man. That was awesome. That was probably one of my favorite magic systems that I've read. Out of in the authors. Again, for those of you who don't realize, it's Zach Argyle's Voice of War, SPFBO finalist. Um, I really like the magic in Children by Bjorn Larson. His is Norse inspired, and it's all based on he's like a Norse expert, right, on Norse mythology. Children, and you will enjoy his magic there. Elizabeth Eckstein, and hers is more the intrusion based magic. So incorporates the alchemy and her stuff again. That's really good stuff in Quicksilver and Brimstone. So yeah, those are just some of the authors that I really enjoy their magic systems.
Yeah, magic systems I always feel like are really hard to do. You either got to pick one lane or the other, like you said. You either got to be like it's got to be either super fleshed out where like it's math almost, which to me is scary and disgusting to even think about that, or it's got to be vague and kind of like you're not sure what you're gonna get. And one person who I think really did that beautifully, the vague stuff, is Holly Tinsley's in We Men of
Yeah.
Ash and Shadow.
Yes.
Her
Yes.
Vegas. And she said when I had her on the channel, she said we're gonna find out more, which I can't wait because that was literally driving me insane the entire book. I was like, I want to know what the rules are. I want to know why some of this works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Holly Tinsley, We Men Ash and Shadow. She knows how to mess with your head, man. She knows how to get in there and just stir it up. So again, fantastic. Well, I totally concur with you. Her book was amazing. The magic system, again, you're not quite sure what's happening. Like, how does this work? Like, I love that personally.
Yeah,
I love the vagueness and I like that.
And that's how Oathbreaker's magic system is too. It's just
Okay,
it's kind of
cool.
like mainly because I'm lazy and I didn't want to put in the effort of like making a fleshed out magic system. I was like, man, just keep it loose, keep it vague, and see what it can have. Some people are super powerful, some people aren't. Some people are just it's who they are based on the species. And then, so what kind of research did you do in prior to get the Drowned Kingdom to where it is today?
Well, I think for me, it's funny. I always tell people like, fantasy writers, we do kind of, you talk about easy. We have the easy part because we make it all up as we go along. I with my background, like again in medieval literature and history, a lot of the stuff like the medieval life and the weaponry and the warfare, I was pretty comfortable with that. I did some extra reading just to make sure my stuff was wound tight. But a lot of the research was more about it was more, I guess you call it internal research. You're checking to make sure that you don't have plot conflicts, that you've made this whole world and everything's linked together properly, that someone was born on this date and they're not too old to be someone's mother or father, and that sort of stuff, that your plot's consistent. That's what I spend a lot of time doing is comparing notes and making sure that I have everything wound tight in terms of people are people's lives and outlines of plots, and like that's a big part of what I do with my research. So,
Mm-hmm. And then we got a question from Holly again. Let's see here if I can show it. There we go. How do you both approach developing different cultures and civilizations in your books? The good, the bad, the etc.
you go first, man.
Uh, I kind of just take as my mentor, Sky. Amazing as she is. She says she always compares me to Joe Abercrombie, which is funny because I
Oh,
really
that's high praise, man.
that is high praise, but I can't ever get into his books. So I always
No,
find that no, I can't get into his books.
wow.
I tried reading the first law like 4 times, and I couldn't get into it. I finished the first book, The Blade itself, but then when I tried the second one, I was like, man, you know what? I can't get into it. But anyways, she always compares me to him, and the rule is that I always just kind of assume everyone's shitty. And that all these different cultures have all these shitty people in it, and usually I've found now that as I'm writing and I'm looking back, I must have a problem with authority because everyone in nobility and in power is an asshole in my books. Like, there's not one really good person who's in power; they're all dickheads, and it's like, oh man. So, how I go about making each civilization, I kind of don't like flesh it out in terms of like these people are from this geographical location, they're like this. These people are from this geographical location, they're like from this. I always just kind of blend them together. They're just people. You're gonna get good people from this country, bad people from the same country, or whatever. And the only thing that I really do is their physical characteristics, and
Hmm.
that's just based on what we know by science and climate and stuff like that. If you're
Hmm.
from if you're from up north like me, where I am, I'm pasty white. If you're close to the equator of the world, you have a more tan skin. So, but other than that, their personalities and their mannerisms are all based just as human beings.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I really like that. To a certain extent, I'm like that. Yeah, a lot of it is geographically, but I think what I do, I do things backwards, man. I'm a backwards person. I'm just messed up. So a lot of my fellow authors say that they create this world and they outline everything and languages and geography and climate and all these things, and they create these world histories and backstories, and then they plot their characters in the middle of it, and then let the characters take off and kind of run their own story, right? But I'm the reverse. I take I write from this normally from a first person perspective. So I take the person, my main character, which in this case is Othrin, and I design a world around him, that what he sees, what he perceives. And then I built these components in the same way you would as a person, like, because I'm not, if I came to Saskatoon, I'm not going to see Saskatoon the way you do.
Mm-hmm.
Saskatoon inside out, the streets, the culture, you probably know about the history, the good places to eat, but if I came to Saskatoon, my viewpoint would be very different. So, that's, I like the small version, like flawed, a limited perspective where you actually miss stuff and you're not, I like the unreliable narrator thing where
Mm-hmm.
you're not sure if this person's worldview is, and you can tell with Othman's is pretty messed up, that, what this person's seeing, is this how things really are? Because I like that sense of frustration that, you never really get to find out, okay, was everything this person telling me credible? Because that's how life is, You tell a story about, a hockey game, and you say, well, no, this guy, yep, he was, he started the fight. He was the instigator, right?
Mhm.
But meanwhile, I'll see the opposite. No, the guy was dogging all night. He was giving him poke checks, and he was getting them all peed off, and that's why it started. You know what I mean? Like we'll each have these really unique perspectives. You were sitting in one corner of the rink, I was sitting in another corner. I saw, I know I saw the ref miss a penalty, but you're like, oh man, you should have called that. So, I like that. That's how I think I kind of write with my world building. Limited, flawed perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know one person who really balanced the type of contrasting perspectives was Zamil Akhtar in Gunmetal Gods. I'm halfway, or not halfway. I'm probably less than halfway through that book right now, and I love the two perspectives that he has going. Micah and who's the other guy? Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts. I can't remember the one character's name. Anyways, but yeah, he does an absolutely amazing job of the contradicting perspectives.
Yeah, his stuff sounds awesome. It's on my TBR. He's an SBFBO semifinalist. So seems like a great guy, great guy to interact with on Twitter.
He is my first author talk, and he was really great to talk to, and just he was an awesome guy. Well, we got a question from Mr. Zach Argyle. How much discovery writing do you do for world and characters as well as plot? So I'll let you go first this time.
Well, it's funny. Like, I remember one of my this author shall remain nameless. Great friend of mine. They're always talking about how they find that the characters take them down these channels and places that they never expected to go. And like they start writing and then they're like, oh well, the character just has me writing this. It has nothing to do with what they originally intended for the character. I am not like that. And that's one of my limitations, I guess, as a writer. Like I said, they talk about plotters and pantsers and the difference. And I'm very much a plotter. Everything is pretty well laid out in a certain way. And there's only this much margin for me to make changes because I have 10 steps ahead as to why it's like that. And nothing that I write is by accident. I may drop something really seemingly innocuous in my writing, and it seems like, why is that detail matter? And later on you read is, oh, I know why that matters. Or in the next book or 3 books later, it's like, oh, but that requires some patience for the reader. Mm-hmm. And but it also requires that you might be flipping back saying, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I remember you also do this. And then you flip back to another book. And, and that's what I found myself doing with writers like Martin or in Tolkien. And that's what I love because, they have you hooked on these little nuggets, right? Mm-hmm. And and we have you going back to, oh yeah, that's why that means something. So
yeah, I'm very much not a plotter. I absolutely respect like authors like you who plot everything out, write it down, have outlines. I'm very much just, let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out. I have a rough skeleton in my head where I want the book to go and how I want it to end, but everything in between is kind of wishy-washy. And so Oathbreaker kind of goes on a wild ride in that sense. And I had one reviewer say that it was too much action. It was too much instant. That's just because every time I wrote, I was like, oh, and then this happens. Yeah. And then I kind of had to answer. Whereas the second book now, I'm kind of learning the rope. I'm kind of plotting it a little bit more to try and slow myself down because I'm kind of like a dog with a stick. When I get writing, I have a stick in my mouth and I'm going and I don't know where I'm going. I'm so excited. So, but now
for some people that's fantastic, man. Some people love that. People are going to eat up Oathbreaker because the people we talked before, plot, the plot vision driven versus character driven, they're going to eat that up because, I know readers that they don't want exposition. They just want, okay, when's the next fight? When's the next battle? When's the next love scene? When's the next, thing going to happen? Right. And they're not as worried about, immersing themselves in anything. And other readers, they, like I said, they want the slow burn. And, again, I know there's people that have DNF my book because that's not for them. And that's okay. That's something that it takes a while to get comfortable with, though, that it's okay for people not to like your book. That's hard
Yeah.
at first, man. You're like, oh my God, you
Yeah.
don't like it. Oh, what did I do? But everybody goes through, every writer goes through that, right? And
Yeah.
when you get that first negative review, you're like, oh
I
my
know
gosh, like you're
it's
just crushed.
crushing, but then I just remember a big quote that Joe Abercrombie tweeted is that if you're not getting negative reviews, your book hasn't reached enough people yet.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
awesome. When he does with his negative reviews, he
Yeah.
goes on Twitter, he posts his 1 star, like today's 1 star review, and
Yeah.
he's just hilarious. I love what he does with that stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just, you know what? Negative reviews, I've only in the last few months started to realize, hey, you know what? They help other people see your work, because someone may read a negative review about your book and be like, but that's exactly what I like to read, and they go pick it up. And that's literally happened. I had someone message me say, hey, I read your 1 star review, and as soon as I saw that, I knew that's something to like. And then they read it and they gave me a 5 star, and they really
Nice.
liked it. And that's just the way it is. Every reader is entitled to their opinion and their preference, and that's okay, because that means that we can all write books that people like, that someone will like, right? So.
Yeah. Zach also commented that he loves foreshadowing, and he's kind of jealous when people like me can foreshadow in their books. I come from a background of I used to play Dungeons and Dragons a lot,
Yeah.
and I never went by the books. Like
Yeah.
they have like little campaign books. I don't know if you play Dungeons and Dragons at
Oh
all.
yeah.
If you're
Yeah, the
okay.
old version. I'm old, man. Look at this gray.
Yeah.
I'm old, brother.
They have the old campaign books, and I always just I want to make my own campaign for my players to play in. So I have these entire campaigns created in my head, and then of course with Dungeons and Dragons, your players can throw your story off the rails really fast. So you kind of have to vamp mid game, and that's kind of just how my writing developed. I was just able to vamp. It's just me vamping for 300 and some pages with a rough outline, and but there's a few things where I'm just able, because I have all these ideas in my head and I'm just able to keep them in my head. I'm able to put the links in and just understand where to foreshadow.
Yeah.
This little nugget is going to be foreshadowing X, Y, and Z down the road, and hopefully they pick up on it.
That's awesome, man. I guess the thing is that with that stuff, again, we talk about this between readers, like the readers that want to be immersed in your world and are like, and they're more those, okay, they're looking for those nuggets. Those are the ones that will remember, oh yeah, like AJ put that in book 1, and now in book 3 it's coming out, or later on in that same book, yeah, he talked like. But some people, it's not that it's over their head. It's not that they're not intelligent to catch. It's just that they don't care, right? And but for some people, those payoffs are huge. I'm very much a foreshadower. My thing is, hopefully people have the ability to realize some things I wrote in book 1 that don't pay off until book 7, for example, right?
Mm.
Some pay off in book 3 or 2, but for me, it's very much a puzzle. And I think putting the puzzle pieces together, you have to be engaged and interested in the book. If you're not, the puzzle doesn't matter, right? You're just reading for the battle scenes, for this and that. Like, I didn't plan to become someone who was known for supposedly, I mean, some of my readers said that I write pretty good battle scenes, and that wasn't one of the things I was focused on. So, and that's a plus that I feel humble that people have said that. I was more focused on the political intrigue and the world building and all that. But like for some people, they've always said like, yeah, I one person said, yeah, I read, but then I started skipping and I went to your battle scenes. I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I went back and read the rest after, and I read. So, everybody reads what they want to read, right? So
yeah, or building off foreshadowing, like Holly, which I'm guilty of doing as well. You just find something that you've already written and be like, this could be foreshadowing. And then coming through with that. I'm definitely guilty of that. So great minds definitely think alike, Holly.
Yeah, Polly is brilliant with the psychological creepiness and that feeling of something's gonna happen and I don't know what yet, but I'm scared. I don't know what I'm scared of. She's so like she's one of the few writers I've ever read that does that somehow, and it's brilliant. And
another author that does really good, like where you can feel the tension building in a scene, is Lee Conley. Is
yes,
the ritual, the Dead Sagas, I believe they're called.
Yeah, and I
Ritual
haven't read his
Flesh
stuff
Nourishment.
yet. I know he's brilliant. Lee's a great guy. I haven't read his stuff yet, but again, on my TBR, one
Yeah,
day. But I know he's got some zombie, type stuff mixed in
yeah.
there. So,
Yeah, he just
you know,
brings like such tension to a scene. Like when I was reading it, I literally found myself leaning forward in my chair a little bit. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, what's gonna happen? So
you
I
you you
definitely,
have to read Bjorn Larsson's Children. He's another person that psychologically he's gonna mess with you, and you're always gonna have to go back and say what happened. Like you're shocked. It's like oh, and then well, what happened there? And you're gonna ask yourself, did I read what I think I read? And that's sleight of hand. And I always talk to him about this, like you do this sleight of hand thing, and I'm not really sure, like, did I read? And it's so messed up. It's like, oh my god, did I read what I thought I just read? And yeah. So I admire writers that can do that. I don't think I have that skill, but Holly Tinsley and Bjorn Larson stick out as two that I've read that do that really well.
yeah, and definitely like I'm excited to read Bjorn's work because I'm a big mythology guy. Like I've always loved everything mythology, and like in my book, I have mythology from all these different cultures and from around the world. Like I have Japanese folklore in there, I have Chinese folklore, I have African monsters in there, and then a lot of it is grounded in Euro and Slavic history. But I try to pickpocket all these other cultures and show them as what they are, and try and hopefully do them justice because I feel like a lot of them are underrepresented or underrepresented.
Yeah, I've tried to do the same. I've tried to make it. I mean, while a lot of it is medieval, then there's always lurking in the background. Like, I have an African inspired area, and they're always lurking in the background, very prominent. And you won't get to see a lot of them quite yet, but they'll be playing a much more important role as the series goes on. And and then a Middle Eastern type inspired that's always mentioned and always referenced historically, but again they'll play more of a prominent role later on. And I've tried to like you said, there are lots of traditional fantasy that cultures and areas of our real world that are underrepresented in terms of inspiring their fantastical counterparts. So yeah, I think that's really important to do that to me, because that's how our real world is, right? If you're aiming for that realism, you're going to have people that speak other languages, you're going to have people that have different skin colors, you're going to have people that have different religions, you're going to have because that's representative of real life.
So as you've mentioned, this is a 7-book saga you're working on, which by itself is a big task. Does the scope of the books grow, I guess?
Oh yeah. So I think what I've done with my books, this 7-book saga is very much about one man's journey and one man's life. However, you have the setting, where he starts off in his home world, and it's described in quite a bit of detail. And no big spoilers here, because as I said before, if you write a book about Atlantis, you probably figure it's probably going to sink. So after his world is destroyed, and you have all this detail was like, oh my gosh, and then it's gone, and then the setting is reestablished. Then it becomes much more expansive, and you start to slowly, bit by bit, see a bit more of the new content he's on, hear a bit more. You have bits and pieces of, and he's already been to certain parts of it, and then it just grows from there. And then as my prequel trilogies take off, and then they will explore a bit more of other parts, and then the next 7-book series will really get expansive. So I'm kind of like, yeah, you get, I try to keep it small, intimate in each book, where your geographical scope isn't too big in terms of the actual settings, but yet it shifts. So you may start off in one country, and then it kind of focuses on another one, and then a lot of this book might be set in this one, and so slowly over the course you get to see more and more of the continent, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and then as the series expands, and the second and third series and fourth series take off, then you'll see even more of the entire world. So that's kind of how I have it planned out.
Well, Zach is taking off. He's got to go take care of those kiddos. Yeah.
Peace out, buddy. Always
Yes.
great to
Thanks
hear
for
from you.
joining us.
Thanks, Zach.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Unlike my kids, I just throw them in a kennel because they're dogs. I don't actually have any human babies running around yet, so I'm pretty free.
Fur babies count, man. Fur babies count.
Yeah, exactly. Before we go, I'm running out of questions here, so we're going to wrap it up here. I ask this question to everyone. So just bear with me. It is completely out of left field. Would you rather fight an orangutan once a year or a chicken every time you walk into your house?
Okay. Well, I definitely rather fight an orangutan once a year because you can train for that. You can, figure out, watch video, figure out the orangutan's weaknesses, see how you can take this orangutan. You got lots of time. The match may be brutal, totally brutal and bloody, and you may not survive, but at least you got time to train, lift weight, you can go to a gym and learn how to, mimic some of the moves and all this stuff. But so the preparation, I think fighting an orangutan once a year will give you a tactical advantage. But fighting a chickens are vicious, man. Every
I know,
day,
yeah,
like
chickens are super vicious.
they're vicious. I can imagine every day. How do you psych yourself out mentally? Like, I gotta fight this friggin' chicken as soon as I come home. Like, that would be. I'd probably give up just because of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd wave the white flag, man. I'd be like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So no, give me the orangutan. Once a year, and we can gear up for that, right? But the chicken, no, chicken wins.
You're the first person to say the orangutan, so we'll put you in the column for the orangutan. I'm getting a tally of all the indie authors and what they would rather fight, and then
yeah, I'm the lone guy in the corner who's gonna take on the 1,000-pound orangutan, man. So
maybe if I get some like Jeff Bezos money, we'll actually put
yeah.
all you guys to the test.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my
Right.
gosh.
But unless there's anything else from the audience or from you, Paul, I just want to say thank you so much for stopping by and joining us and talking about your book and self-publishing and joining me on our tangents.
Oh, I'm so honored, man. Thank you so much for having me, AJ. It's an honor and privilege to be here, and thanks so much. I'll be watching all your podcasts with all the rest of the great indie authors, and including yourself. And good luck with your own writing. And I can't wait to get into Oathbreaker. And obviously, I'll be putting a review on Goodreads when I'm done. And I think it's in my next 2 or 3 books that I'll be reading. So can't wait to delve into that.
Yes, Strong Kingdom's on my book. Like I said, since I stepped into the indie author world, my TBR list has exploded.
Yeah. Mine too. Yeah, it's something like 200 books plus now, and hopefully I'll get to most of the next couple of years between my own writing. But
yeah, I need a new bookshelf now. My bookshelf is completely full now of books I'm going to read. And it's just like, man, I need like a bookshelf for books I've read and then books I'm going to read.
Yeah, I went and got one just the other day, and I kind of separated in the corner with some of my favorite authors, and I'm going to get another one for my favorite kind of indie author. So that's a good idea.
Yeah. So before we go, just where can people pick up A Drowned Kingdom and The Last of the Atlanteans when it comes out?
Well, all of my books, A Drowned Kingdom and The Last of the Atlanteans, will be available on our indie self-published assist company, FriesenPress. It'll also The Last of the Atlanteans and The Drowned Kingdom will also be available on Amazon, all the Amazon outlets. It's actually stocked in the shelves of local Chapters Indigo stores in my area: London, Sarnia, St. Thomas, Windsor. It's also in some specialty shops. It's going to be in some shops abroad, and you can also get it on BookBub and anything through the Ingram network because of FriesenPress. So you can pretty well get it all over the world. So which is kind of nice, right? Most people tend to buy it off of Amazon and or FriesenPress, but of course, if you're in Canada, you can, and you're in the area in the triangle, which that Sarnia, Windsor, London triangle, you can get any Chapters Indigo store in there.
Nice. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to everyone who commented and watched our ramblings for an hour and 8 minutes. Very much appreciate it, and I hope enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you so much. You too, AJ. All the best. Okay, bye-bye now.